You know that feeling when someone asks you, "So, what do you do?" And your mouth opens, but nothing comes out? Not because you don't have an answer, but because the answer you've been giving your whole life just stopped being true. And now you're standing there mid sentence, realizing you have no idea who you are when you're not playing the role you built your entire life around. Boy, do I know that story well. That, my friends, is not confusion. That's what's happening when the identity you've been performing finally stops fitting. You've been playing a role your whole life. Growing up, you were somebody's daughter, somebody's friend, somebody's sibling, whatever the case may be. But more importantly, as an adult, you've been someone's wife, partner, mother, someone's employee. That's probably the big one. Someone's good girl. And we play that role well because those roles gave us instructions. Maybe you questioned at the beginning, how do I be a mother? I'm new to this, but somebody is there showing you the way. Even when you're a new employee, somebody's there training you, telling you what you need to do, how to act, how to be. Boy, that brings back a lot of memories for me, because I can remember so many different roles, and I'm still rewiring my brain from all of the different things in all of my different roles. Those roles told us and taught us how to act, what to prioritize, where to put your attention. And then all of a sudden, that role is gone. Whether the relationship ended or the children have moved away and now you've got an empty nest, or you're retiring or deciding not to work or to do something different. When that role disappears, the instruction manual goes with it right out the door. And then you're sitting there like, now what do I do? What's left is that hollow, disorienting space where you used to know exactly what to do next. And now there's no instruction book. I have a couple of examples for you. So, when my first husband decided that he no longer wanted to be married, and it was truly his decision because there was never any discussion, it was not a mutual thing. But I remember so clearly one of the things that he said to me was that I didn't need him anymore. And I was like, "Wait, what?" But again, there was really no discussion because he had already made that decision. I had no input. I remember my response being, "I still need you. I just need you differently than when we were first married." Be that as it may, it didn't matter because he'd already made that decision and had already moved on and was already involved with somebody else. But I realized through a series of different events that the identity of being his wife wasn't just a title. It was the organizing principle. And suddenly, the role that had shaped every decision, every priority, every version of good enough was just gone. It wasn't there. And that truly became a point where I really started looking within and questioning who I was. Where it really came home for me was my friend, and I think I've told this story before, but my friend dragged me to a singles event, and I hate singles events. I always hated them. Even in college, I didn't go to singles events, but going to the clubs, dance things, whatever. I never liked it. But I went to this event. She dragged me along, and of course, I was the new face. And if I'm being honest, probably younger than, or at least I looked younger than a lot of them. And I remember this gentleman asking me, "So, what do you like to do for fun?" And I froze. I literally froze. And I don't even remember what I said. But that ties into that whole identity role that was gone, because it was at that point, as I thought about it later, I realized my entire identity had been wrapped up in being his wife. And everything we did was what he wanted to do. And not that I was objecting to it, mind you, at that time. I just fell into it. I didn't even realize I was just falling into it. It was just that was just part of being married. And I didn't realize it until that role was gone. That identity was gone. And then it was, okay, well, now who am I? And so at, for probably, I think, 11 years, I spent time figuring out, well, who am I and what do I like to do? It was at that time, it was no longer knowing who I was without that role to play. So again, it wasn't, the disorientation wasn't sadness. I mean, I was sad that my marriage had fallen apart, but it wasn't sadness so much as what I realize now, it was groundlessness, because I had just totally washed away my identity and just kind of followed along. And as I look back, I can see those patterns because I did that not only with my husband, I did that with friendships. I just kind of followed along, and whatever they wanted to do, I never, I would say, "Oh, sure, yeah, I'll go do that." Inside, I was cringing because I didn't want to go. So I would either go and be miserable, or at the last minute, I would feign, "Oh, I have a headache," or "I'm not feeling well," so I didn't have to go. I did that a lot. And I mean, it's crazy when you think back on all the things that you did at that, when you don't have that role to play or that identity, because I was just going on with the flow. Major people pleasing persona, from the standpoint of just not wanting to upset anybody and just go along with it and be the wingman, if you will. Another example, and it's more current, I still struggle with, and it's taken me a while and I'm starting to change that, but like when I first retired and I would go places, even if it was just an appointment, a hair appointment or something like that, and somebody I didn't know, and you'd get "So what do you do?" And inside, I wanted to say, "Oh, I'm doing coaching and blah, blah, blah." But I would always say, "Oh, I'm retired." And I realized that, again, I was trying to find my identity. And for whatever reason, I wasn't owning the concept or the idea that I am a coach. And so I've changed that over time. I mean, I retired, it's 2026. I retired 4 years ago for the second time, but 4 years ago. And so within the last, probably I would say 6 months, is when I truly started owning that. And so now when I go to an appointment and I don't know the person and they ask me, what do you do? I tell them I'm a coach. And that prompts the conversation because a lot of people, well, what do you mean you're a coach? Or I'll say I'm a life coach or I'm a self-discovery coach, whatever. But that prompts a discussion. But it took me a while to own that. And again, because you no longer have the old identity with the rule book, now I get to write the rules because I work for myself. So thinking about it, thinking back on it, and then and what, well, what is that? I think sometimes we look at it as it's failure or it's, I'm falling apart. I don't have this identity anymore. And that's not the case. What it is, it's your nervous system realizing that that old identity doesn't fit anymore. Your nervous system hasn't wrapped its arm around or built the new identity yet. And that disorientation is that gap between who you were and who you're becoming. And women, most of us are trying to fill that gap immediately by picking a new role, finding a new instruction manual. What do I do now? Performing a new version of acceptable. But what if that disorientation is the whole point? Because the reality is, you don't need a new role. More and more in the groups that I'm in the conversations that I'm having, in calls that I'm on, and more, even in posts that I'm seeing on social media, more and more I'm seeing people talking about, women in particular, talking about just being and not trying to identify with a specific role. Because as women, we don't take the time to allow ourselves to just be. We have this belief that we need to be doing something, we need to be fixing something, we need to be helping someone. And that's just simply not the case. It's perfectly okay to just be. And it's in those moments of just allowing yourself to be is when the real self comes out. So you don't need a new role. What we need to do is just sit in the space where the old one used to be and let ourselves feel how strange it is to not know what comes next. That's perfectly okay. Lean into that feeling. It took me a while to get there. I will be honest. And now I'm going to be even more honest. I look forward to creating what I call that white space on my calendar. When a call cancels, yes, I get some time back. I get to do what I want to do. And not that I don't enjoy my calls, because I do, and I love working with my clients and the different calls that I have. But I also relish in being able to have that extra time to just be, which I never took the time to do before. And it's kind of one of those things where I wish I knew then what I know now. And I think a lot of us have probably been in that same mode. But sitting in the space where the old one used to be and feeling that strangeness, it's not confusion. That's the beginning of trusting yourself, letting yourself feel it. And that's where a lot of us tend to hide. We hide from our feelings. But when we allow ourselves to sit with it, and again, it's that beginning of self-trust, it might be the first time in your life that you're not following someone else's script. And how cool is that? Drop a comment below. Have you ever lost a role that used to define you? And if the answer is yes, what was that role? Put that in the comments. I would love to hear your response on that. If this is landing for you, I want you to know you're not behind. You're not broken. And you don't need to figure out who you are by next week. There's no rule book. We could take whatever time we need. That disorientation, that's your system, your nervous system waking up. Inside my Skool community, Journey to Self, the Awakening, we don't rush past this part. We sit with it. We name it. We let the old identity fall away without scrambling to replace it. If you're ready to stop performing and start listening, the link to join us is in the description. Come fit with us. I'll see you next time.